No, Jalissa whispers. Vita, no. I glance down at where she's on her knees, staring in horror at my soul. I told you, the Mistwatcher does this, I grunt at her. It smashes people. It eats them. If that's an act of divinity, then stay on your knees and pray to me. If not, come on. I have an army to deal with. Absent-mindedly, I glance around and spot a discarded scythe on the ground, no doubt left by one of the fleeing farm workers when my zombies emerged. I suppose I'd be better off with a weapon, huh? I pick it up, feeling the awkward heft and weight, glowering at the blunt far edge and the odd angle of the blade. This is actually kinda garbage, but it's better than nothing, I suppose. It's still a somewhat dangerous stick I can use to parry if needed. Plus, any who oppose me will be cut through as easily as wheat. I quickly spin the scythe once, getting a feel for it as I approach the army with Jalissa in my other hand. It's not elegant, but it's heavy and sharp and I have strength to spare. It will do. Now then, let's see. The army itself doesn't really seem particularly dangerous. There are maybe a couple hundred people total coming for me, right now. All of them feel weak compared to the Templars I've been dealing with lately, which makes sense. Templars often poach powerful people out of the army to fill their ranks. There are a few impressive people I sense, a couple even at the lower end of the high Templar power scale, but after engorging myself on a number of extremely powerful souls in the prison, I think I can still yank them. The question will be, can I get close? And the answer is well, we'll see. If I'm lucky, this won't even be a fight. I don't expect to be lucky, but even I sometimes catch a break. At least I don't feel Galdrick coming after me yet. The Valkan army is trained to fight with spears and shields, armored in thick quilted gambesons with chitin breastplates, falds, and greaves. Lighter and cheaper than Templar full plate, it still probably does the trick against normal weapons, but I don't really know and don't really need to know. I pull out an old friend, giving her a thankful squeeze as I lodge her inside my new scythe. I feel Jalissa hear our conversation, one I didn't really intend for her ears. She snaps back to herself and struggles to get to her feet as I continue to tug her along. I yank her upwards and let go when she catches her balance, curling a tentacle around her soul like a hook to guide her instead. She quickly learns to match my pace. Eventually, we stop and I let the army march their formation the rest of the way to me. I don't want to get too far from the forest in case I need to beat a hasty retreat, though I amusingly note some of the souls in the army seem to think I'm making a power move by forcing them to come to me. About 50 yards out, one of them finally has a danger sense long enough to feel me, and immediately advises an emergency halt. The officers listen, and the army stops. I grin. They aren't totally incompetent, at least. Identify yourself, someone from the army calls at me, their voice amplified with chinemancy. Are you controlling the swarm of undead witnessed from the walls? I am, I call back, twisting my tendrils into a spell to amplify my voice as well. Shit, I didn't really think about what to say here. Sorry for the scare. They're not quite sure what to make of that, which I guess is kind of a win. What did Penelope say? Putting people off balance is a good way to start challenging preconceptions. Necromancy is illegal on Valkan soil, the guy speaking for the army eventually shouts back. Oh, my bad. I respond. Is it okay if I just leave, then? Silence. Not even the local wildlife makes a peep, though that's increasingly normal around me and my zombie army. I mean it, I'll just go, I repeat. I have no qualms with Valka or its army. You murdered 3 people, and you practice forbidden soul magic, the army guy states. We cannot, in good conscience, allow you to leave. Ah, well, that's going to be a problem for you then, I answer. Because you can't stop me from leaving. Inquisitor, if you would. I turn to Jelisaveta, who is giving me almost as mortified a look as she gave me after I murdered all her co-workers at the prospect of speaking publicly on my behalf. I extend my sound amplification spell over her anyway, which causes her to immediately cover her ears. I'm sure she can hear regardless. Inquisitor jealous of Edda, in your experience being my warden and subsequently my prisoner, what will happen if this detachment of the Valkan army fights me? She glances to the army, then back to me. Then she clears her throat and winces at the sound of it. I believe it would be a mistake, Jalissa says, and I make sure her voice carries far, very far. Enough to make sure the army hears and more. I know the military protocol for necromancers ties your hands here, officers. But I urge you, do not treat this woman as a dangerous learned mage. Treat her as you would a sated dragon, and leave her be. They do, at least, allow Jalissa to cross the distance between us, then immediately cuff and gag her in case she's not actually a prisoner, which I guess is pretty sensible considering I'm a known animancer. Still no Templar response either, which is weird. Galdra must be on the other side of the city, but what about all the other Templars that should be mobilizing at the report of a hostile necromancer? Not that I'm hostile, per se, but you know. Remus? I drawl. Is that you? Wait, he mutters, finally placing my voice. Vita? Yep, I grunt. How have you been, boss? The other two tactical officers seem to get a bit nervous about this casual banter as they somewhat uselessly move in a wide circle around me. One of them starts creeping closer, which is going to be amusing, I guess. I have been well enough, I suppose, Remus answers hesitantly, the air growing thick with mana as he draws his sword. After Lisha I was sentenced to serve as a slave in the army for 3 years, but it's mostly just the same work as before. I follow orders and kill monsters, so it's rather my forte. Cool. I see they gave you that sword back. I suppose I'm still considered its most skilled wielder, even after all these years, he shrugs. His face falls at that, immediately getting serious. I'm afraid I can't part with it. You were such a promising hunter, Vita. When and why did you turn to animancy? I was always a necromancer, I answer blandly. Just never by choice. I'm some kind of human experiment or watcherkin or some shit. I just had a talent I needed to use, and found the best place for it, protecting the city. And you know, I can still do that. I'm afraid that's not my call to make, my former teacher answers noncommittally. But you wouldn't make the call even if you could, I say for him, and it's not a question. Well then, you can thank my daughter, because a promise to let her meet you again is the only reason you're going to walk away alive. He raises an eyebrow. You have a daughter? Adoption runs in the family, I say simply, and immediately get attacked by his allies. Well, for a generous interpretation of attacked, anyway. One of the tactical officers tries to cast something on me rather than at me, which is an important distinction because my magic resistance is absolutely bonkers. With what is now a pretty basic churning of mana in my body, I can obliterate any foreign spells that try to manifest inside me. That's got nothing on the other guy, though. He dashes forward to fight me in melee, so I just yoink him and step out of the way as his corpse faceplants, skidding to a stop at my feet. She's excited to see you, I continue, so I hope we can meet up again sometime. Remus doesn't continue the banter, responding only with a slash to the air that sends a blade of destructive aromancy my way. I've seen this before, a lifetime ago when we fought the burrow hounds. That attack isn't just a cutting technique, it exploded on impact and annihilated countless numbers of the little monsters. I'm not going to take my chances with it, I dodge to the side, letting the attack scream past me and explode into the forest. I grit my teeth as I feel a number of zombies shatter, despite being behind a few lines of trees. I don't have time to be frustrated, though, as before my first dodge is even finished another wind blade is flying at my head. Shit, I don't have time to dodge. I cover my face and the impact smashes into me, Nora's talent meeting the magical cutting edge with a furious roar. My revenant and friend is stronger, but the projectile still detonates with a brutal amount of force, sending me flying through the air, an easy target for follow-ups. I thrust mana into my tendrils and rapidly weave the most basic spell I know, pumping it with range and power. A retina-scalding flash of light burns in front of Remus' face for a fraction of a second, forcing him on the defensive long enough for me to safely land and rush forward to make up lost ground. Nora's reinforcement talent protects me from cuts and stabs, but absorbing the shock of landing after being flung 30 feet through the air is all me. Normally, when people talk about the soul empowering the body, they apparently are talking about instinctive use of enhancer abilities. Something about flesh anima saturation that the body needs to adapt to in order to not injure itself. What they don't mean is having a strong soul physically alters the structure of your body to be superhuman, but that's what I thought they meant and that's what's been happening to me. I'm apparently just a well of natural biomancy in the same way that I'm a well of natural necromancy. The problem is that I can't control any of it, so I get stupid shit like thigh eyes. But I guess it's not like I know what I'd want to use it for beyond being stronger in the first place. Another wind strike smashes me in the face and I remember that combat probably isn't the best time to muse about this. The blade of air cuts me to the bone, gets blocked by my skull and then literally explodes in my face, sending a layer of my skin, blood, and muscle showering in every direction as I'm blasted heels overhead through the air once more. Branches of soul snake up through my face to stymie the blood flow, holding together the side of my head that's now little more than a dripping, gore-covered skull. I'm down one eye, and unfortunately it's not the one in my temple. Ugh, my depth perception is all sideways now. I detonate shockwaves of kinemancy behind me to try and arrest my momentum in the air, but I still slam into the ground and bounce before I manage to get to my feet, barely jumping out of the way of another attack. Ow, I grunt. Ever the professional, Remus doesn't respond or hesitate as he continues to send more slashes my way, though at this point I'm far enough away from him that they're relatively easy to dodge. Which isn't actually good, since I need to be close in order to do any real damage to him. I prep some of the projectile shards I used back in the prison and toss them his way. Lacking soul sight he can't see them, but he does seem to feel them with his danger sense despite the blaring alarm that is me ringing in his metaphorical ears. He dodges blind, which surprisingly works, but still forces him to slow down his offense a little. I'll need a bit more than this, though. Fortunately, I've collected a new kind of projectile. Catcells and Flyer Squad B attack my target. Risen explode from the forest at my command, one group sleek and low to the ground while the other ascends high to attack from above. These undead might be fast enough to dodge an airstrike or two, but in the more likely event that they don't they're still at least taking a few attacks in my place. Unfortunately, Remus just continues to focus on me while the other tactical officer, the one I had been ignoring because his talent doesn't work on me, swaps focus to slaughtering my undead, and he's good at it. The man is as dangerous as Ultrix. One look at his target and it just implodes, crushed into a tiny, wet ball of dead flesh in the blink of an eye. Both of my squads are going to be destroyed long before they reach Remus. With a resigned sigh, I start throwing more gnashing shards at my old teacher to distract him. Gnashing shards are the name I decided for the hungry little buggers, as I alter course towards Mr. Implody. It's much easier to avoid Remus projectiles when I'm not trying to run towards him, so I start making ground a lot faster. Tossing a bunch of shards his way helps as well, but I hate doing it. It feels like such a waste to toss bits of my own soul at him as nothing more than a distraction. I can't even retrieve them if they miss, they'll probably just keep flying until the Mistwatcher nabs them. Once I'm almost in range to attack Mr. Implody, though, Remus decides to start taking hits in order to keep me back. And I am entirely okay with that. Remus winces in pain as a pair of my gnashing shards latch onto his soul and start slowly trying to chew their way through him. We trade a few more projectiles this way, and I come out on top, barely getting close enough to grab and yank out the soul of Mr. Implody. Then, sensing opportunity, I quickly shard his soul and put it back in. If Remus doesn't put down his sword and surrender in the next 10 seconds, I order, making sure I'm loud enough for everyone to hear, kill everyone you see. Then my brand new revenant explodes, Remus having tossed a wind strike our way before I even finished talking. Man, what a dick. His ally's soul is irrevocably shattered, rapidly disintegrating into dust as Nora was apparently too busy protecting me to make the corpse invulnerable. Hey, so fun fact. I shout at him. The Mistwatcher can't collect the souls from destroyed revenants. I smirk as I feel that shake him, using the opening to get closer. Thanks to the shards I've lodged in his soul, he's starting to slow down, all that power slowly leaking away and facing the limits of the 60-year-old body it's trapped in. Soon, I'm in range to soul yoink, but I don't want to kill him, so I just grab and twist, trying to debilitate from raw pain. It's not as effective as it sometimes is, but I manage to slip into a range where he can't use that damn wind blast without catching himself in the explosion. His enchanted sword has more than one trick to it, though. A sharpness enchantment. An aerodynamics enchantment. A momentum enchantment. Remus' blade is, to my understanding, a Valkan heirloom wrought from the very meteor that created Skyhope Crater. It was designed explicitly to kill monsters of legend, beasts with scales harder than steel and magic beyond mortal capacity. When the blade strikes, it strikes with the weight of a nation behind it, carving through whatever stands in its way. Unless, of course, that thing is Nora. My soul can. Tendrils move to intercept the blade, and though they cannot touch it, they can pour my mana into the depths of the steel. It happily accepts me, yanking me down into it like I'm falling from a cliff. The Watcher mana inside fights and obliterates me, but I sacrifice more of my essence to temporarily overpower it, the blade singing blue for a beautiful moment. I feel it trying to pull me through its engraved pathways, twist me into spells and use me to bring its carved will onto the world, but I resist. So, for a crucial moment, its enchantments are gone. It's just a lump of metal. Remus is startled as, before impact, his sword suddenly feels heavier yet swings weaker. His attack catches me on the exposed cheekbone of my face, still a heavy blow but barely chipping bone. While he's still surprised, I smash Nora's handle through his helmet. The fight is over quickly after that. I knock him to the ground and wrest the blade from his hands, drooling internally over the feast. He tries to keep striking at me, punching and kicking to the limited extent he can manage it from the ground, but it's mostly just annoying. I'm going to break your limbs now, I inform him, and then I start stomping. He finally stops moving after I remove the option. You're annoyingly persistent, I grumble, pulling the gnashing shards from his soul to reabsorb them. They're quite delicious, having bloated themselves on bits of Remus. You don't stop attacking a monster until the end, he chokes out. Didn't I teach you that? I snort. Yet what a shitty mentor you turned out to be, I complain. You just kicked my ass around for a few weeks, needed to get yourself saved, and then tried and failed to kill me. I should have stuck to being a thief, at least then I could have hung out more with Lynn. Well, now that the takeoffs are taken care of, the small group sent out to deal with me is retreating back to the walls while reinforcements muster. Including, I now notice, Galdra and other Templars. That's my cue to leave, I guess, but I need to decide what to do with this sword. I plant Nora into the ground, then move her out of the scythe and into one of my gloves so I can safely grip the blade. Pouring my mana back into its depths, I remove its enchantments so they don't cause any chaos effects while I flex my limbs and start to bend the blade. It actually bends a lot more than I expected. Chitin blades tend to snap long before they get the kind of bend I'm putting in this thing. Still, it's eventually too much for the poor sword, and Remus' anguish at watching its destruction is almost as loud as the metallic snap as I break it in half. I'm leaving, I announce, projecting the sound as loud as I'm able. I don't want to fight. So listen to wisdom and just let sleeping dragons lie. I turn away, biting off a chunk of the sword so my soul can lap it up. Come after me again, I promise, and it's war. Wow. Galdra sure moves fast when she's angry. After kicking the shit out of the army, I did my best to dramatically and casually stroll back to the forest, but before long the Templars finally deigned to deploy and sent Galdra flying through the air in my general direction. I had to actually start hoofing it pretty fast in order to get under tree cover before she reached me. Unfortunately, however, simply breaking line of sight doesn't seem to have deterred First Lady High Templar Galdra Carthala the Annihilator much at all. "You little shit," she roars from above me. "No one beats up my exes except me." I feel a spell tingle above my head and immediately reach tentacles up to send out a pulse of my mana, destroying as much of it as I can. I shouldn't have bothered. The vast majority of the treetops above me still burst into flames, blanketing the forest with oppressive heat. I'm getting flushed out, and making loud mana annihilations is only likely to reveal my position. I counteract this as best I can by immediately changing direction and crafting chinemancy spells in random locations far away from me to mimic the sound of my mana annihilation. Likewise, I throw my voice, projecting it in the opposite direction from where I'm going. Turns out I can still give orders this way. "Bomber squad up." A swarm of undead birds shoot into the air, moving to circle above and around Galdra to keep her attention. She mostly ignores them, spraying the forest with a frankly absurd quantity of fireballs. The ground is wet and the trees tend to not burn well at all, but the sheer amount of heat being tossed around is enough for the fire to rage for as long as Galdra wills it. I dodge and weave as best I can, knowing that Nora's talent will certainly prevent the flames from damaging my clothes but will do very little against the threat of being cooked alive inside them. Galdra is blind firing, which makes it pretty easy to dodge her attacks, but she's frustratingly good at throwing her attacks ahead of me, in the directions she knows I want to flee. She's forcing me to slow down in order to avoid getting hit, and it's only a matter of time before I'm out of cover and in her attack range. Thankfully, though, she moves to fly directly at me. I try to figure out why as I finish munching down half of Rima's sword, feeling the metal flow down through my mana channels and pull more of me into the world. Then I twitch in annoyance as said mana swarms the nascent eyeball on the side of my waist, feeling nerve passageways rapidly shoot up the side of my body and extend towards my brain as the useless orb of sight grows to completion. Damn it, body, now is not the time. On the upside, Galdra's advance puts her in range for gnashing shard attacks, so I pull some out and start tossing them her way. She dodges much less effectively than Remus, and I nail her with 2 on the first volley. Nice. Her giant soul is a much bigger target, so that helps. Unfortunately, being giant means that it's going to take a lot longer for my shards to start causing appreciable damage. Once again, I feel mana signatures flare up all around me, but this time it's all outside my tentacle range. Damn it, this woman learns too fast. Walls of frozen air solidify into existence in a wide circle around me, locking me in the middle. Above them, all the heat stolen from the air has condensed into a massive fireball hanging above my head, ready to drop and encompass the entire circle. Shit. This is insane. I could destroy the walls, but it will take too much time. I'm an easy target if I try to jump over them or if I leap up to disrupt the spell. Do I send zombies after her as a distraction? How do I, Wait. She's not dropping on me, and she doesn't intend to. What? Last chance to surrender, kid, Galdra growls at me, and I don't find the bluff even remotely convincing. She wants to kill me, I can tell that much. But she's not going to. She can't, as much as that idea pisses her off. You've been ordered to capture me alive, I realize, grinning at her. You think I'm not pissed enough to disobey orders, she fires back, but I already felt my words hit home. She's been neutered. Galdra the Annihilator isn't allowed to annihilate. This is an opportunity. Wall breakers, to me. I order. My heavier risen move to tackle the walls of ice hemming me in. The brutal cold might harm them a bit, but it's not like they have to worry about frostbite. While they slam their bodies into the ice walls, I continue forming and tossing gnashing shards towards Galdra, watching with satisfaction as the giant ball of flame gets launched into the forest away from me rather than dropped on my head. It incinerates a number of my dregs, but I suppose there's always more where those ones came from. My wall breaker squad then smashes a hole through Galdra's ice wall, and I start moving towards them as they widen it. Galdra, however, sends a jet of flame down at them, and they get incinerated. Did ours escape? She asks me bluntly. He did, I confirm, seeing no reason to hide it. He killed a High Templar, then himself, and his soul flew off. I don't feel him anywhere near Skyhope, but he's somewhere. Unless your god ate him, I guess. She casts another spell at me, and the shattered shards of ice around the opening my ashed wall breakers made suddenly launch towards me. I cover my face and otherwise ignore them, letting Nora handle it. As I leap through the small gap in the wall, Galdra dives towards me, the tiny opening suddenly becoming the focal point for an absurdly powerful targeted spell. I can only assume she dives closer because she's exclusively a learned mage, and for learned magic you have to balance the amount of power you put into a spell between range and strength. There's an important distinction, however, between spells that you cast on a specific person or at a specific point such as the ice walls she made and projectile spells, such as the wind blasts from Remus' former sword. A projectile spell creates a projectile next to the caster and then gives the projectile momentum, so all of the actual magic occurs at close range and the spell isn't subject to the power versus distance problem. On the downside, they have to actually be aimed, while non-projectile spells just happen wherever you want them to. Plus, most spells can't be projectiles at all. You can't create, say, the concept of holding someone in place with kineticism and then launch it at somebody. You have to cast a spell like that on a person directly. So basically, she's rushing closer to put as much raw power as possible into whatever capture spell she's casting. Yet it just doesn't matter. With all the metal I've been munching lately, I can still easily obliterate it. A noise like an explosion erupts from the mana clash, and I emerge from Galdra's trap uncaught but not before she flies face first into a spray of gnashing shards. Good trade on my end. I rush deeper into the forest as my birds start diving for another round of harassment. This time she wises up and kills each of them with different spells, but that distracts her long enough for me to get under more thick tree cover, blocking her line of sight to my location once again. Are you with ours, you little shit? Galdra calls after me. Where is he? Unfortunately, as soon as I start looking forward to it she starts to back off, pulling out a tiny bead of metal and speaking into it. The speaking quickly advances into frustrated grumbling and eventually yelling, before finally she turns around and rockets off back to Skyhope. Oh, well. I suppose it's a little disappointing that I won't be able to eat Galdra today, but I suppose it's actually more likely that, if I get her close to death, she would just kill me first. I'm not arrogant enough to think she can't. She just wasn't going to, for some reason. I store Nora's soul back in my body as I think about that. It has to be the Epsilon thing. The Templars must know that ours can survive his body's death, and no one other than an animancer would be able to damage his soul. If ours is killed, he just gets away scot-free unless someone like me is around, and the Templars don't employ people like me. Well, I guess they apparently employed a Vrothizo, actually, but maybe they just don't know she eats souls. Either way, the point is that I can understand there are good reasons to not want to kill ours. But why do they think I can do that? Maybe it's time to have that conversation with Ultrix when I get back. I don't know. The thought of learning about this secret past I apparently have weirds me out. It's literally never been something I've thought about before. Why would I? I've been an orphan girl forever. It's a pretty damn common story where I grew up. Sure, we would sometimes wonder who our parents were, but it's just sort of an idle what-if reserved for days where we have the energy to ponder things like that. Actually meeting my mother in the flesh. I don't like it. I barely have any idea who Ultrix is and she still looks at me the same way Lynn does. It's creepy. Eventually I manage to get deep enough in the forest to where Penelope is waiting by herself, avoiding my little prisoner commune. I make my way to her, silently trekking the miles between us and killing everything in my way to eat and regain my strength, physically and spiritually. My body is as hungry as my soul right now, and while I'm worried that's just because it wants to grow another mockery of a tentacle, I have no intention of willingly starving myself for any reason. It's me, I call out once I'm close enough for Penelope to hear it, which is surprisingly far away, nowadays. She's making herself into quite the neat little abomination. I know, she calls back. You have a rather distinct smell, as of recently. Yeah, can you maybe turn that off? Of course. I step into the same clearing as her, and I'm greeted with a wonderful smile. I try to smile back and accidentally start peeling more skin off my face as I tug on it from the inside, which actually kind of hurts. Penelope's expression quickly jumps to one of concern, rushing forwards to look at my face. Holy shit, Vita, she hisses. What happened? Oh, Remus hit me with his sword a few times, I dismiss. Why, is it bad? Is it ugh, she sighs, pinching the bridge of her nose. Nearly anyone else would be long dead. If not for your ability to pinch your blood vessels shut, you would have certainly died from hemorrhaging. And did you say this is from Remus' sword? As in our former mentor? This thing? I ask, lifting the half of the blade that I haven't eaten yet. It is incredibly difficult not to laugh at the sheer, all-consuming dumbfoundedness boiling in my girlfriend's soul. Vita, she says slowly, did you eat the sword of Skyhope? I mean, yeah, I admit. I didn't want anyone to come after me trying to get it back. You ate it in front of witnesses? No, wait, back up. You actually took a blow from it and you're still standing. Watcher's eyes, Vita, that blade has killed dragons. Oh yeah, that reminds me, what's a dragon? Penelope lets out a groaning noise through her nose. Look Penelope, I don't really give a shit about things until they become relevant, and things don't usually become relevant unless they are attacking me or I can eat them. She snorts, stepping forward and casting a spell on the missing part of my face. And which of those categories do I reside in, she asks. Neither, I answer. You are far, far outside the realm of, usually. Her wonderful grin returns, and she reaches out to cup my chin with her thumb and forefinger. Will you think it's weird if I tell you that seeing half your face as a bloody skull makes me desperately want to kiss you, she asks. Will you pout when I tell you I'm still not going to let you do that? I ask back. Come on, what's a dragon? She does indeed pout, but I am a dark and stoic queen of death and therefore immune. Conceptually they're not that exciting, she explains in a tone of voice I can only describe as a supremely regal whine. They're enormous winged lizards. Highly intelligent, for monsters. Almost always possess powerful talents. They live in the deep forest and rarely leave. Remus and his team had to kill one together shortly after the war because it was migrating towards us. Not that exciting, huh? I ask, scooping her up in a princess carry. You know, Jalissa told the Valkan I should be treated as a sated dragon. Does that mean I'm not exciting? She chuckles, leaning on my shoulder. What did you do with her, by the way? Inquisitor Jelisaveta, I mean. I don't see any new revenants with you. Jalissa? I let her go. Vita, honey, no, Penelope chides, tapping her forefinger just under the exposed bone of my nostrils. She knows too much. You have to kill or control people that know too much. I promised not to kill her though, I grumble, sitting down under a tree and putting her in my lap. So my only way to control people went out the window too. She sighs, and I feel my face itch as she starts making it slowly regrow. I'll take care of it, she promises. Just please be careful. I set the whole city on fire when I let you out and now I have to extinguish it all. I nod glumly, letting tentacles snake out of my soul and wrap her up as she hugs me. I wish I was more like you, Penelope, I admit. I only realize I'm crying when I feel water leaking down my thigh and I instinctively think I've peed myself again. But no, it's just more of the most useless eye in existence rearing its ugly lid. My body shakes as I squeeze Penelope harder. She lets me cry in silence for a while, and I hate it. I wish she'd reach into my body and make it stop. Is not being human really so bad? She eventually muses. Would it help if I tell you? Penelope murmurs. The things you could have done to avoid this, were you to go back in time. Go for it, I answer, not having any idea whether it would or wouldn't. When you first found your powers, were you not so afraid of authority? Were you not raised by people suspicious of the church? You would have thought to go to them. And that would have changed everything. Nora was right, up to a point. They would not have killed you, they would have tried to help you. They would look into your claims, find that you are indeed a natural animancer, track down your connection to ours, and they would have believed you. You would not have been killed or hurt or sent to jail. No, I whisper. Please don't say that. Ah, but I'm not done, Penelope hums, a smile tickling her face. Because you wouldn't have been free neither. Of course they can't let an animancer go free. They would have used you, if you were an obedient and devout little girl. They would have quite enjoyed using you, Vita. Perhaps you would have even ended up a symbol of the church itself, heralded as a prophet of the Mist Watcher, with your mana and your tentacles and whatnot. You would be living a life of comfort and relative safety, your family taken care of, your food brought to you, and your every moment of every day planned out by someone else. Just like your little friend Lark. That's how the church works, Vita. They have to either control you, or they kill you. There is no middle ground. Could you accept that, Vita? I feel the fire in her soul as she speaks, her passion and her smoldering hate. She already knows my answer, and loves me for it. No, I admit. I'd despise that. Yes, she agrees. And that has been my life these past 2 years, my own sort of prison. Nowhere near as bad a one as yours, but it's still there. I've had no choice but to play the good little church girl, to become something they think they can push around and use as they will. My research is theirs, my time is theirs, my skills are theirs, even my personal wealth is only allowed because how I use it falls within their view of acceptability. This isn't overt, mind you. I've received no threats and no orders. Only reasonable requests and thin smiles. There's not a shred of evidence to implicate them. But the pattern is there. They poach the strongest members out of the army so that their private force is always stronger. They maintain exclusive control on an entire school of magic in the name of safety. They knew about Sky's plan to cause a perception event and chose to abuse it instead of stopping it. Any other explanation is statistically absurd. And yet they keep getting away with it because they have that power base, they have the public's approval, they have the ability to stage a thinly veiled coup without anyone batting an eye. So you may not always be making the right choice, Vita, but I promise you this, conflict was inevitable. At this stage of the plan we're not looking to avoid the church anymore. We have to destroy them. I continue holding her silently, soaking that in. She's probably right. I hate that she's probably right. There's a part that doesn't sit well with me, though. You make them out to be these absolute evil masterminds, I say, but I've literally never met a Templar or preacher like that. Not that I meet many preachers, but like I've met a lot of Templars. And they don't think that way. Not even the ones I hate. A lot of them are pretty damn nice people. Even if they still end up betraying me. They didn't cause it, per se, Penelope muses. They just decided that the Mistwatchers should be enacted without their interference, this time. Although you have a point, the whole mass murder situation is a bit of a bright red flag that says evil on it. There's no way the rank and file believes the church was involved. Perhaps there are a few truly foul masterminds in the woodworks of their organization. I haven't met them yet, but hopefully if they exist we make sure not to let them escape. I chuckle. You really want to do this? I ask. Just destroy them all. Do we have any other options at this point? She counters. If we follow through with using animancy to become immortal, they'll come after us anyway. They won't let us save anyone else. Dying is too important to their dogma. I sigh. All right. How are we doing this, then? I don't know the first thing about toppling a regime. Oh, you just leave all the toppling to me, Vita, Penelope murmurs. All you need to do is keep being big and scary. Prepare for the fight that's inevitably coming your way, keep their eyes off me, and make them hate you more than anything. Can you do that? I nod glumly. Literally without even trying, I confirm. When I first took a ride to Site 4, my fellow Templars never bound my hands or gagged my mouth, only blindfolded me for purely security-related reasons. It's funny how, now that I'm tied up and gagged like an actual prisoner, I somehow seem to be treated with less suspicion. Apologies for the rough handling, Inquisitor, one of the army officers grunts at me. It's just protocol. It's generally a major downside, but sometimes I have to appreciate my talent's ability to be incredibly distracting. I just watched my pregnant coworker die because of a stupid stunt I pulled, after all. But that's okay, I can just drown my consciousness in the sound of vendors yelling at passers-by, the smell of bodies packed in busy streets, the feeling of heat fluctuating as we walk by other people. I can glance at someone and immerse myself in their tells, crafting a story about their life from vague pieces of information that I've trained myself to pick out. I can forget, just for a moment, why tears are soaking the front of my face. I can forget that look of utter betrayal as 3 more innocent Templars die under my watch, the unspeakable tragedy of a girl murdering because she knows no other option. I was too late to give her one. I'm escorted to the closest major church grounds where, to no one's surprise, members of the Inquisition are already waiting for me. 3 of them, in fact, 2 men and 1 woman, judging by the smell. Which is to say I can tell one of them is going to be on her period for a few days, one of the men who happens to be an Inquisitor captain still has the scent of masturbation on him, it lasts a long time, and the third is starting to stretch the fabric of his underclothes because he finds me attractive. Wordlessly, they surround me and guide me down into the bowels of the church, through lower areas I'd been forbidden to tread before I got black trim on my now broken armor. Inquisitors only. This is where I was taught to damn myself for the greater good, where I learned the 2 animancy spells I know before getting shipped off to Site 4 without so much as a briefing. I'm taken to a cell-like room, holding only a single chair that's built firmly into the floor. I'm shoved into it, my already bound arms are tied to the back, and the gag is finally ripped out of my mouth. Name, the female Inquisitor demands. Jealous of Etta, I respond professionally. The necromancer claimed you were an Inquisitor. I am one, I confirm. Unless this debrief goes poorly for me, I suppose. The Inquisitor captain lets out an amused noise. The woman interrogating me doesn't. What is the identity of the necromancer you were accompanying? She snaps. She's. I start to answer, but then cut myself off. Actually, I need to see your clearance level to answer that. Sorry. I feel the woman's muscles tense under her armor, and she starts to speak before getting cut off by her captain, who does actually pull out what appears to be proper clearance papers and shoves it in front of my face. I read it over, and as far as I can tell it's the real deal. The entire Inquisition is being cleared for knowledge of Site 4, the captain grunts. We're in an all-hands-on-deck situation. You may speak freely in this room, Inquisitor. I nod. I guess that makes sense, now that the prison is destroyed and the prisoners are all back to being active threats. I was in the company of Vita, prisoner class Epsilon 2, I report. Wait, isn't Epsilon what ours was under? The younger boy asks, and if I had any doubts as to his age they're cleared at the sound of his voice. My guess is that he's no older than 16. The other 2 Inquisitors turn to glower his way, which is somehow still effective despite their helmets. He shuts up immediately. That's correct, I answer anyway. There were 2 Epsilon-class prisoners at Site 4, ours and Vita. And what's the status of ours? the captain demands. Escaped, I report. He killed himself. What? The woman asks. So he died after escaping? No, he escaped by dying, I clarify. Epsilon-class prisoners are abominations known as liches, the captain explains. Upon death, their soul can possess another body, returning them to life. It is believed that ours has to prepare viable bodies in advance, but we have no known way to locate or identify those bodies, so the assumption is that at least one is still alive after all these years. We can bet he's back and healthier than ever. A grim mood sets over the room. That's more than I knew about the whole thing, but it makes sense. But enough background, the captain continues. We're just going to have to ask these questions again if we keep badgering her before we start. Inquisitor, have you ever been in decontamination before? I hesitate. I say. Yes, but I don't remember it. He seems immediately startled. Who performed your wait? Captain Manus, I assume. That's correct, I tell him. He relaxes, nodding. We don't have that level of skill, so I'm afraid you'll remember the whole experience. Apologies in advance. I swallow, nodding slowly. Sheesh, is there any way he could have been a little more intimidating? At least I won't walk into my boss' office and then randomly wake up terrified in my room, I retort, trying to inject a bit of levity into this. I've been surrounded by animancers for months now, but this is the first time I have the impending knowledge that I'm about to have animancy cast on me. My soul is about to be violated by my peers. Shit, 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 shit. You have nothing to fear if you're innocent, the woman says, her fingers starting to twist together a spell. That is the least true statement I have ever heard, I counter, clenching my bound fists as tightly as I can. Just drop your magic resistance, she orders. Wait until you are asked a question, Inquisitor, the captain orders, as if he was expecting this reaction. I shut my mouth. He was expecting Watcher, he was expecting it. This is the animancy. I instantly stiffen up, my eyes opening wide. They're giving me a desire to relay my experiences truthfully and completely. Which okay, I admit that's a pretty reasonable interrogation method. It won't be that bad, probably. I slow my breathing as best I can, calming down. It's fine. Things will be fine. It'll all probably be easier if I just actively try to ignore all the animancy being done to me and just go with the flow. It's not like I can or should try to avoid decontamination. How many times have you been in decontamination before? The captain asks. Only once, that I know of. I answer, happy to finally have a question asked of me. Not counting this time, I mean. Have you ever had animancy cast on you for other reasons? He presses. If so, by who? Yes. I confirm. I cast animancy on myself as part of my duties. I've sinned with soul sight and soul shield daily. But it's okay. I'll work it off in the afterlife, right? It's worth it to be able to keep more dangerous people in check. Although I guess I didn't actually do that. I'm kind of a failure of a Templar, aren't I? The words roll easily off my tongue, the painful emotions accompanying them passing through me and sliding off like they're covered in oil. I guess that might have been a bit too much information, but better too much than not enough, I think. I really hope my answer is everything they want to know. What are you picking up, Ewan? The captain asks. Well, she's integrating very quickly, the boy answers. Which I suppose is both convenient and worrying. Ewan. What a nice name. Hi, Ewan. I greet him. It's nice to meet you. Hello, ma'am, he responds awkwardly. Anyway, I do see signs of a fairly obvious memory wipe, like she reported. Can't be more than a few days, though, based on size. Nothing else. I second that report, the nice woman modifying my soul grunts. I as well, The captain nods. So, what are we thinking? A couple hours, based on integration speed? 3 at most, the woman grunts. I hope she's not grumpy. I want to cheer her up. Then let's talk outside, the captain says, and the 3 of them leave the room, locking me inside it. Wait, no one is here to ask me questions now. Oh, no. But I want to tell them things. My first impressions are positive. I hear the woman speak from a few rooms down. If she's been affected by cognomancy, the signs of it are gone, and I couldn't find any evidence of a soul tumor. I don't see any way she could be a sleeper. Agreed, I hear the captain confirm. It's quite the relief, but stay on guard until after your modifications finalize. We still need to fish for conflicts of directive regarding. Hey, I can still hear you. I shout at the top of my lungs, since I doubt they'll be able to hear me unless I do so. You'll have to move further away. In response, I hear the telltale void of sound that accompanies a silence bubble. That works too, I suppose. I should have expected that. Most Templars are better at magic than me. I hope they appreciate my honesty there. They were talking about pretty interesting stuff. I'm curious about what sort of spells they casted on me, but I think I'll make a point to actively not think about or try to memorize any. Seems like the smart thing to do. I suppose I'm alone now for a while. That really sucks. I want to answer all the questions and get this over with. Heh, I guess that's the animancy talking. I sure got cognomancied, huh? I should be scared. I should be terrified of this. Why am I not? No, of course I'm not. This is important, they have to know for sure I'm trustworthy. Only animancy can confirm the use of animancy. This is good. This is fine. They just need to come back so I can tell them everything and answer all their questions. I want to answer them. I want to. 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 Every footstep that seems to approach makes me spasm with anticipation. I can smell them walking around outside my door. I can hear them navigating hidden passageways, peering at me from cracks in the wall behind my head. They're there. They can ask. I want to blurt out everything, but I have to wait until they ask. Why won't they ask? Why? Tell us about your time at Site 4, Inquisitor, the Templar captain orders. With an explosion of relief, the words start pouring out of me like a mudslide, bolstered by an overwhelming joy at finally being able to say them. I tell the whole story, starting from the wagon ride to Site 4, trying to give every detail possible. The young Inquisitor frantically scribbles down my every word with a pen, recording it in shorthand as I blabber on, describing all the minuscule details my talent picks up for the first time in many, many years. It feels so great to do so, so fulfilling to finally put this information to use. At least, it does up until I'm asked to omit those unless I consider them particularly relevant, which is a shame because we've barely even started talking about the first day. It's okay though, that's okay. I can report. I can do this right and not screw it up. I can help. I can tell them everything, and it feels so good. Then I recorded our whole conversation on her captured souls in her file, though I omitted the thinly veiled death threat. Then. Why did you omit the death threat? The captain asks, cutting me off. Yay, another question. Because I believed not doing so would be pointlessly harmful, I say honestly. Vita is a person that needs to feel powerful and in control in order to be comfortable, likely as a side effect of a damaging childhood. She's caught in the fallacy of assuming all power will be abused except her own, and lashes out as a way to make herself feel more comfortable. She also struggles with anticipating the consequences of the things she says. If I recorded those words and they came back to bite her, she'd consider that an abuse of a pointless detail, not a justified response to a statement that was not okay to say on her part. And do you think she would have been right or wrong to believe that? Wrong, of course, I tell him. But establishing mutual respect is the first and most important step to teaching her that, so I made the call I thought was the right one and removed the possibility of that confrontation. It doesn't seem like that answer completely satisfies him, but I can't really think of a better way to explain myself, and I don't think the problem is a lack of understanding either. It's not at all important that he agrees with me, only that I give a complete answer to his question as I understand it. I continue to speak, detailing the start of the escape, helplessly watching Vita kill my allies, and other unpleasant memories that I just can't drum up the effort to feel terribly bad about right now. Just the facts, I have to give the facts. It makes me so happy to do so. I love not having to wallow in the regret, honestly. Part of your duty is to ensure neither Vita nor ours are released, the captain reminds me. This is a more important duty than your own life. How do you feel about your own survival, in that light? I'll accept any punishment for my breach of protocol, I tell him. But frankly, if I could have stopped Vita by sacrificing my life, I would have. I just believe such an outcome would have been fundamentally impossible. Vita is inhumanly strong, both physically and through her capacity to kill with a thought. I attempted to stop her on multiple occasions, I simply failed so utterly that she could stop my attempts without causing me permanent harm. Furthermore, the speed and skill with which she can create undead means my death would actually lower the chances that a more skilled Templar could successfully stop her. I continue my story. They ask me a lot of questions about ours, but I can't answer most of them, I can only tell them what I saw. They ask for detailed descriptions of every person involved in the breakout, and I give them damn detailed descriptions, down to the soul. They seem to appreciate that, which makes me giddy and warm inside. After I finish my story, discussing the forest trip, my desperate attempt to free the Templars under Vita's control, and ultimately my release back to Skyhope, I get hit with a round of questioning I'm not at all prepared for. Did you in any way assist with or cause the breakout at Site 4, the captain asks me. I blink in surprise, but the compulsion to answer forces the words from my mouth anyway. I don't think so, I answer hesitantly. If I did, it certainly wasn't with my knowledge or consent. Elaborate further, the captain demands. I can't think of any way in which I could have enabled the breakout, I answer firmly. But anyone can see the timing is suspicious. Roscoe's arrival, that's the bird plushie I told you about, only arrived because I ordered it re-examined, and the breakout happened very soon after its arrival. I don't understand what connection there could be, and of course the Templars re-examining it no doubt did their duties to the fullest extent, but I can't get it out of my head that I somehow screwed things up with that. Vita was exceptionally happy to see it, it's the catalyst that made her promise my survival. Yet at the same time, I didn't get any impression that she knew about the breakout before it actually occurred. I don't know. I just feel like I'm somehow missing something, but hopefully it's just paranoia. They don't ask anything further about that, thankfully, returning to questions I'm entirely happy to answer. It's pretty wonderful, all things considered. Just rambling about things I've done and feeling a sense of accomplishment for it. I could really get used to this. They ask me about people I care about, my family is very important to me, but to some extent I care about everybody and I make that clear. They ask me about what Vita made me say, I explained it's all part of my honest opinion and that Vita firmly believes in keeping her word, leaving her alone would be the best option, and then they ask why I believe it's acceptable to let an animancer and soul enslaver run free. Well, maybe leave her alone isn't the right way to phrase it, I answer. Vita isn't a good person, really. I thought she was, but I was wrong. She wants to be a good person, though. And she could be. She's vengeful, but not malicious. She's brutal, but not sadistic. She can and does go out of her way to do the right thing, and she's a remarkable empath. I feel like if I just had more time, if we didn't have this breakout, I could have gotten through to her. I could have found a way to get a happy ending for everyone. I guess that's arrogant, but even after all this death, I can't think of her as a monster. I just watch her eyes, she killed so many people. She murdered and twisted the closest people I had to friends at Site 4, and I know she's evil for it. Yet all I see when I look at her is a child in pain. She doesn't deserve to be what she is. There's a long silence for a while, or at least the closest my talent lets me get to silence with 3 other people in the room. If you were ordered to kill her, would you? The woman asks me. I can't help but laugh a little. I would attempt to follow that order, yes, I say. I will do what I am asked to do. I wouldn't succeed, though. I'd be more likely to live through jumping off the island. So if you were ordered to what you know would be certain death, she presses. Then I'd go, I confirm. I expected to be dead months ago, after all. I still remember the dull feeling of having my body bit into pieces, too caught in the throes of a sensory episode to consciously acknowledge my own mortal wounds. At least dying to Vita would be quicker, less shameful. Anyone else have any questions? The captain eventually asks. I hope they say yes, but unfortunately they do not. Wait, what am I going to do now? Oh no, I hope they don't leave me in silence again. Go ahead and fix her, then, the captain says, and the woman nods before starting to cast something. I blink, a sudden fear hitting me. Wait, I stutter. Fix me how? The boy stops writing, calmly walking behind my chair as the captain answers. We're returning you to normal, Inquisitor, he says calmly. Are you sure you wouldn't rather ask more questions? I ask desperately. We're sure, he soothes, kneeling down next to me. It's going to be okay. I don't want to go back, I admit, because I know the shame that runs through me at saying it will just wash away like the rest of the bad feelings. I know, the captain tells me. That's common. But it's better to be how the Watcher made you, isn't it? How the Watcher made me. Right. Of course. I cared about that a lot before this. I like talking, I babble. I like being able to focus on your questions more than the smell of what you did 2 nights ago. I know you do, but it's important that we always. He pauses a bit as I watch him figure out what I'm alluding to, and I giggle a bit as he winces. That we always avoid the worst temptations of this evil craft. Your soul is just as sacred as any other, Inquisitor Jelisaveta. You're right, I admit, because I know it's true. You're right. But please don't. Please. It will be over soon, Inquisitor, the captain damns me. You did well. Now be quiet, and be still. You're going to be okay, Inquisitor, the captain reassures me. It's okay. Are you sure you can't remove my memory of this? I gasp. The final decision isn't entirely in my hands, but I'll certainly be giving my firm recommendation that you are, the Inquisitor captain reassures me. You're one tough woman, Inquisitor. Most people would have broken under that. I can't help it. I give him an incredulous look. The female Inquisitor takes her hand off my belly and nods at the young Inquisitor behind me, who starts untying me from the chair. Welcome back, she grunts at me. You're nice and normal again. I really hope I never have to go through with this again, I say softly. Hopefully not, the captain agrees. It's a painful thing to submit yourself to. Still, I use my time to splurge on the first fancy bath I've had in a damn long while, since I've been sitting on months of pay I've been physically unable to spend. Then I head quickly to my mother and father's house, resolving to spend the rest of my day off with them. Bless them both, they neither hug nor kiss me. I'm not a fan of touching people, least of all getting their saliva on me, but I happily enjoy being in the same room with the 2 people I love most for the first time in far too long. Even better, they understand not to ask me too many questions. They're far more than I deserve, I love them so much. All good things must come to an end, though. I wake up just before first light, say goodbye to them both, and start walking towards the closest temple to pick up my new orders and new armor. Early mornings are nice. There's far less activity, far less noise. The faint smell of dew even adds a pleasant undertone to the normally wretched stench of the city. I make a point to focus on it, trying to isolate the beauty out of the foul. It doesn't go very well, but that's okay. Careful, slow progress is how I stopped myself from going crazy when I first got my talent. It's how I'll continue to improve with it. Still, practicing my focus does leave me a bit uncharacteristically surprised when I hear the voice of someone I never expected to meet again. I suppose it's not entirely unreasonable that I didn't notice her, though, considering that her smell is completely different from the last time I saw her. Inquisitor Jelisaveta, First Lady Vesuvius greets me. What a pleasant surprise. I quickly turn to face her, bowing slightly. It's not really needed or expected to bow to true nobles, but they certainly tend to appreciate it. First Lady Vesuvius. I blurt out. Thank you again for healing me. I hope your research into my talent was helpful. Sure enough, she seems amused by the bow, and my reaction in general. Lady Vesuvius is quite the generous philanthropist if you believe the propaganda, an eccentric, outspoken, but ultimately very kind woman. I can't personally help but find her intimidating, though, even if she was nothing but polite the one other time we met. Besides, what kind of eccentric but kind person casually slaughters 12,000 soldiers in an afternoon? Extremely helpful, Lady Vesuvius answers, smiling as if at a joke. Though unfortunately I learned little beyond how to replicate it, which I suspect is information that would do you little good. Do accept my apologies. Oh, it's no trouble. I answer hurriedly. I wasn't really expecting anything from it. I know you're a very busy woman. I do certainly wish I had more time to deal with projects like yours, Lady Vesuvius admits. Unfortunately, most of my research time is devoted to national security matters, such as the Vrothizo. Very fascinating creatures, I must admit. Anyway, I suspect you've divined I have a purpose here, and you're right. After you left my care I didn't get to see you again until just now, and I would consider myself quite the failure of a doctor if I did not do a follow-up chat with you to inquire if you have any problems with your new limbs. Is that so? I ask, feeling oddly stressed about that. I'm sort of getting the general feeling that was a massive lie, and that's weird. Really weird, because I don't see or smell or hear any of the tells I would usually use to confirm that someone is lying. Honestly, I don't think I've felt like this about someone since before I got my talent. I've always been pretty good with people, even before I obtained super senses and then trained myself to pick up information without overwhelming myself. When I got the general feeling that someone was maybe full of a bit of bullshit, I ended up right 99% of the time. Since obtaining my talent, I learned that the things that gave me general feelings had actual reasons behind them, tiny details that my conscious brain was unable to latch onto but I still subconsciously absorbed. Most people seem to be able to do that pretty well, Vita herself being a notable exception. It hasn't really come up since I got my talent, though. I can just look at someone and know exactly where the bad vibes are coming from. Not so with Lady Vesuvius, though, which is weird. Maybe I'm getting a false positive. Or maybe she's just a really, really good liar. My arm and leg are fine, I tell her honestly. I haven't had any problems with them. I still kind of smell that damn nutrient goop everywhere I go, but shit. I very, very carefully try not to pause my sentence or otherwise outwardly react as I come to a horrifying conclusion, heart beating out of my chest. Have mostly learned to ignore it by now. It's been getting less and less noticeable since you warned me about it. That's wonderful to hear, Lady Vesuvius says demurely. Please let me know if it fails to disappear completely, or if you have any other problems. Of course, I agree pleasantly. I'd be happy to. My words falter as they leave my mouth, because as I speak them I'm also listening to far quieter words, sub-vocalized so only I can hear them. I told her you'd figure it out, Penelope whispers, her fanged smile terrifyingly fake. You're lucky that it took you until now. She continues at a normal tone, before I can respond. That's settled then, she announces with wretched pleasantry. That's really all the business I had, but it seems we're going the same way and I'd be delighted to have someone to walk with. I regain my composure halfway through her words, copying her private communication method. It's a scary idea. A silence bubble is an easy way to have a private conversation, but this way no one even knows we're having a private conversation. This is above me, I tell her while she speaks, trusting flat honesty in a situation where I have no clever ideas. Even if you threaten me or my family, I can't in good conscience ignore this. I'd love to have you with me, I then lie at a normal volume. It's truly an honor, Lady Vesuvius. Do you often go for walks before the sky brightens? I'm not threatening to hurt you or your family, the noblewoman insists in what I only assume is a very technical way. I'm asking you to help me prevent a war. The relative quiet of the early morning leaves me even more capable than usual of listening to the terrified pounding of my heart, contrasted by the freakish calmness of Vesuvius the Inhuman's 12. I have had a very awful couple of days, I whisper. So please tell me I didn't just hear you declare an intent to commit treason. I prefer to think of it as an intent to defend the girl I love from an unjust authority, Lady Vesuvius answers smoothly. It sounds far more laudable and objective when you say it like that, doesn't it? Though I do want to say, before we get any further into this, I'm willing to protect her with violence. I absolutely don't want to. What do you want, then? I ask quietly. I wonder, she answers coyly, studying me very closely. I'll answer, but you should go first. I swallow and nod. Not like I'm in a position to say no. I want everyone to have a happy ending, I say firmly. Lady Vesuvius laughs. That's funny, she smirks. I want everyone to not have an ending at all. Ah. Okay. The pieces are starting to fall into place. You're helping Vita figure out how to bring dead souls back to life, I conclude. I am indeed, she agrees, seeming pleased I figured that out. Vita cares mainly because of her dead friends and family, but she has also embraced my wish that no one should have to die. I am a biomancer at my core, after all. I heal. And I can think of no greater goal than curing the greatest affliction of mankind's history, death itself. That's ambitious, I respond slowly. I'd be offended if I was called anything less, Lady Vesuvius preens. You'd be denying people the afterlife, I point out. I doubt that, she shrugs. Even if such a thing exists, immortality is not the same as immunity to death. Besides, people could always opt out. We'd pretty rapidly run out of space and food, wouldn't we? I challenge. Okay. She's arrogant, prideful, absolutely swimming in hubris, but I think she's being honest. She's an idealist and she's trying to do the right thing. So is her threat the result of believing so firmly in those ideals that she'd go to any lengths to achieve them? Is it the result of the fear of losing someone she loves? Or is it because she's emotionally stunted in all the ways I'm picking up vague vibes on, despite her terrifying control over her expression? Does it actually matter? I'm not sure I agree with you on that, I say slowly, but in the end I certainly have no desire to stop you from researching immortality, if that's what you want to do. What I need to know is why you're telling me all this. You hinted at this on purpose, right? You sought me out in order to have this conversation. Why? Because you have stumbled into a position where you can help, Penelope answers, looking at me seriously. I care about Skyhope, Inquisitor. I care deeply about all of Valka. Wanting the best possible life for my people is part of who I am. And somehow, you know I'm telling the truth about that, don't you? I nod, slowly, as my mind races a mile a minute. My talent is extreme, Lady Vesuvius continues. I can kill 0 people, 1 person, or everyone. If you intend to back me into a corner where I'll almost certainly be killed, my options become keeling over to die or lashing out, and I'm afraid I'm not a good enough person to be a martyr. For most people, you'd consider that fairly understandable, wouldn't you? For most people. By her own wording, she's acknowledging that her situation is drastically different. Yet should I call her out on that? No. It wouldn't help. What helps here? What are my goals? I suppose on a fundamental level I have only two options. I can go along with whatever it is Vesuvius the Inhuman wants from me, keep her secrets, and betray my duty. Or I can pretend to do that, covertly attempting to find a way to betray Vesuvius without letting the consequences spill out and get people killed. You have my hands tied, metaphorically speaking, I tell her. Just make your case. Okay, that one I'm not letting slide. With all due respect, my lady, ours wouldn't be a problem at all if you hadn't staged a prison break. To my surprise, she nods in agreement. I'll cop that, she admits. The immediate situation is on me. I could claim that the very security intended to keep him secret is at fault. I had no idea he was even there, and if I did I would have made contingencies for that. But to me that seems like a less compelling counterpoint than simply pointing out that, yes, he absolutely would have. And how do you figure that? I grumble. Your people had ours this entire time, and their best idea for keeping him out of the public was to just hope he didn't die. Last I checked, I still haven't invented immortality yet, so exactly how much longer do you think that was going to last? I'm not privy to that kind of information, I answer noncommittally. Oh come on, Inquisitor. Don't ruin my opinion of your intelligence now. We need her alive because the Inquisition is refusing to research the animancy necessary to actually do their jobs. If they had a way to stop the man they would have damn well used it in the last decade and a half. Even if Vita can stop ours, which is a big maybe, she's sort of dangerously immature and mentally unstable. She'd be a hard sell to my superiors without the blasphemy, Lady Vesuvius. I was trying to. I know you were, Penelope cuts me off. She knows you were. But you need to open your eyes, Inquisitor. The leaders of your organization are up to so much shit they wouldn't notice if we routed the sewers into their homes. You might be good, your co-workers might be good, but the people you work for are corrupt, power-hungry hypocrites. And she expects me to believe she's better? Please. The woman who just threatened to kill a city isn't going to fool me with a mudslinging campaign. I can't just say that, though, because it's a threat she's legitimately capable of making. Good on. First Lady Penelope Vesuvius is a walking natural disaster the likes of which I'm not sure even the High Templars could stop. Sure, they could kill her, but would that save us, or just damn us all? She has me and she knows it. Inquisitor, Penelope says slowly, do you think the world would be better off with Vita and I dead? The question takes me by surprise, and I frown. What kind of question is that? You can't be judged before you even live your life, I answer. Not even the Watcher can see the future. That's a deflection, she points out. No, it's my honest opinion, I disagree. How am I supposed to know if you're going to help the world or ruin it? I don't know, my lady. I want to default to believing you want the best for us, but you made that pretty damn difficult when you opened this conversation by threatening thousands of lives. Penelope sighs. My flair for the dramatic is finally coming back to bite me, she muses. Apologies. I just feel the need to go all in when betting the life of my love. But I, like you, believe everything works best when we can all compromise and get along. All I'm asking you for is assistance in preventing the worst from coming to pass. I know, I say. And I'd have loved to help if you weren't coercing me and forcing me to lie like a traitor in order to do that. The entire situation might be out of my hands anyway, Lady Vesuvius. I have no idea when or why they might put me back into decontamination, and then. I gesture helplessly. Inquisitors are not good secret keepers, I finish. I will find a way to solve that problem, Lady Vesuvius promises. If you think it's going to happen, you come to me first. Fine, I agree, not really seeing any other option. We'll take care of Melissa, she says suddenly. Startled, I turn towards her. I mean that, she continues. That's not a threat, it's unconditional. Vida and I will ensure she heals and lives a good life. Thank you, I say. She deserves more than what she got. Lady Vesuvius grins wide, baring her teeth. She does, doesn't she? The woman agrees, holding out her hand. May this be the lowest point of our partnership, Jelisaveta. I know I can be a bit extreme, but I assure you we want the same things. I stare at the hand like it killed my mother. I hate handshakes. People have no idea how gross handshakes are, and I'm in civvies so I don't even get a layer of armored chitin between me and the other person. I don't even have gloves. Still, my social instincts win out and I reach forward to grab her hand, give it a firm shake, and immediately panic as something pierces my magic resistance. What did you do to me? I whisper. What does it feel like I did to you? She counters. I'm not tired anymore, I realize. She winks. Just a little biomantic pick-me-up. Honestly, I doubt I could get out of bed without that spell, it's so useful. I'd say thank you, except I didn't ask for this and I have no way to know if it's the only thing you did to me. Well, if I did put a remotely activatable trap inside your body purely hypothetically, of course all you would need to do is follow the terms of our little agreement and I'd have no reason to use it, now would I? I swallow, nodding slowly. I of course don't remember agreeing to anything, but that's somewhat of a pointless piece of pedantry to mention now. I should get to the church, I say, loud enough to be heard for the first time since being threatened. I have an appointment to make, I'm afraid. Ah, of course, Penelope responds, all formality and smiles. This is where we part ways, then. Thank you again for the company, Inquisitor. Any time, I lie, and start walking away. She does the same, heading the opposite direction. I still hear her whisper after me as I leave, though. Remember, Inquisitor, she intones. Hypocrisy. I grit my teeth and decline to answer, trudging the rest of the way to the nearby church with the weight of the conversation pressing down on me. Our new grand cathedral is nowhere near as beautiful as the one in the center city used to be, but it's still a lovingly wrought tower of stonework that I'm sure would look a lot more beautiful to someone that couldn't see the hundreds of jagged imperfections. The inside is 1,000 times worse, though, because the church tends to regularly burn scented candles in order to freshen up the place. Watcher, my nose just wants to murder me. At least I don't have to wait long before I'm escorted to meet what I assume will be my new boss now that Captain Manus is, compromised. And also dead. I don't expect to be ushered into a room with 2 High Templars, a Templar General, and 2 older men not in Templar uniforms at all. Though I guess considering how today has been going so far, I probably should have. I snap to attention. Inquisitor Jelisaveta reporting. I announce. What the hell are all these super high-ranking people doing overseeing my assignment meeting, of all things? What am I going to be sent on now? I recognize one of the High Templars, she has Galdra's distinctive burnt smell, but I don't know who anyone else in this room even is. Welcome, Inquisitor, the Templar General says. How was your break? He's a man, and the unknown High Templar is a woman. Templar Generals are basically just the rank above Templar Captains, we don't have anywhere near as many ranks as the army does. There's Captains, Generals, and then there's Templar Command. High Templars aren't part of those rankings, they are their own category. It was short, sir, I say frankly. But I'm ready for duty. He barks out a laugh. Good answer. Now then, we've all read your report. We have some questions for you, regarding your treatment of animivores. I let my eyebrows raise slightly. I did admit that I fed Melissa during the decontamination, I suppose. Ask away, I prompt politely. What is your opinion on animavorism? The general asks frankly. I hesitate. Well, I suppose if I get excommunicated I might finally get to take a break, at least. I feel the need to acknowledge that my opinion comes from a position of ignorance, I blabber quickly. I'm certainly no preacher, but human souls, or I guess the souls of all sapient creatures, are sacred. The consumption of them is wrong. But animavorous ozoids don't eat humans. Melissa's case proves they can't. And to my knowledge they are naturally occurring creatures, so it seems as though the Mistwatcher must keep them around for a reason. The Templar General turns his head to one of the armorless old men. Preacher, he prompts. It is a good answer, the preacher nods solemnly. What's your opinion on Vrothizo, Inquisitor? The general asks, turning back to me. I blink. Non sequitur, but okay. They're extremely dangerous monsters, I answer. Mindless and aggressive. They're an obvious problem. And if a Vrothizo was not mindless and aggressive? How would you feel about that? That's a very open-ended question, sir, I hedge. The details would greatly influence my answer. There's a tension settling in the room, and I start getting the impression that my answer is very important. Galdra in particular seems intense. More than usual, I mean. What would you do if you met a Vrothizo that could both speak and reason, and didn't act with apparent aggression? The general clarifies. Well, that's an easy question, at least. I suppose I would introduce myself, sir, I say. There's a brief pause, and then Galdra the Annihilator busts out laughing. What's so funny? What else am I supposed to do when I meet someone? The Templar General just looks around the room, receiving subtle nods from everyone else. All right then, Inquisitor, the General begins, let me explain the current situation. As you well know, Ars Rainier is once again at large. We don't know where he is or what he's doing, but we must assume there will be hostile action. As a result, we are assigning at least one Inquisitor to every single Templar squad in order to act as animancy detection, defense, and consultation. The Inquisition is being split up, expanded, and largely declassified, with the exception of how to actually cast animancy. That will be your first major duty to your new squad. I nod. That makes perfect sense. I think something similar was done during the Ars crisis itself, at least after the Inquisition got purged of his influence. Ars and his thralls catching Templars alone is what allowed them to convert so many. Kind of like what Lady Vesuvius did to me, actually. Except, with animancy. Your second major duty to your squad, the general says, putting an Inquisitor captain's helmet on the table in front of him, will be to lead it. It's an honor, sir, I say out loud. You will be captaining the yet-to-be-created Squad 56, the general orders. Which, lucky for you, means that your short break gets to last a little bit longer. You'll have a team of newbies, and you won't be going on any actual missions until they finish their training. We do expect you to report to their barracks and get to know them all beforehand, however. Of course, sir, I acknowledge. He nods, placing a set of folders next to the proffered helmet. These are the dossiers on your future squad members. Familiarize yourself with them, some of them have abnormal permissions and special needs. Though it's nothing you haven't demonstrated the capacity to excel at dealing with. I swallow, stepping forward when he gestures to do so and flipping quickly through my team, quickly picking up the basics. Holy shit, I have a former tactical officer. Sir, with all due respect, am I really qualified for this? I ask, my stress blooming brightly enough to finally protest. We're going to be dealing with two of the most powerful animancers in history, and we're doing it sooner rather than later, the general grunts. As the only one to meet them both and return alive, I can't think of anyone more qualified. None of that is thanks to my own power, I argue. I was just as helpless against Ars as anyone else. With all due respect, sir, you're expecting me to lead a team I'm going to be the weakest member of. He drums his armored fingers on the desk, considering me. Inquisitor, the absolute last thing we want is to put a Templar in charge because they're powerful, he says. We don't want a captain that solves problems with raw strength. We want a captain that gets shit done because she's clever, and that's you. You might call it dumb luck, but I call it talent. A more important kind than the one the Watcher put in your soul. I take a deep breath, and nod. Yes, sir, I acknowledge. Any other comments? The general asks, turning to the High Templars. Take good care of the kid, Galdra orders me, or I'll kick your ass. Which kid? No, it doesn't matter. I'll take care of them all. That's my job now, I guess. Yes ma'am, I answer her, and she gives me a curt nod. Interitus, the general prompts the other High Templar. We like her, she hisses. She will do. I carefully control my reaction as my mind races. That name sounds like the dead language ours uses, and the way she talks. Do we have a splice as a High Templar? I regret not having soul sight on, but it just seems gauche to cast animancy in a church. That will be all, then, Inquisitor Captain Gelisaveta, the general orders me. You are authorized for additional animancy education, which will begin at dawn in 2 days' time, in the Inquisition headquarters. You are to associate with and familiarize yourself with your future team until then. You may introduce yourself as their future captain, so long as you do not speak with the implication that their graduation is a foregone conclusion, as it is not. Pick up your new armor and weapons from the quartermaster. Dismissed. Numbly, I salute and exit the room, carrying my files and my new Watcherdam helmet. Everyone I tried to save died. Why is anyone putting me in charge of more people? Well, it's a bunch of new people, at least. I probably won't be sent on any crazy missions with a team full of freshly sprouted trainees. I start reading all the dossiers more carefully, trying to learn as much as I can before I meet everyone. Other than the tactical officer, the rest of them look normal so far, at least. Let's see, last one. Trainee Lark. That's a pretty name. Halfway through reading the first page, I stop walking. When I'm done, I read it again. No way. No damn way. This has to be a mistake, right? Yet there it is, listed right at the top. Age, 2 years. Species, Vrothizo. Confessed to multiple crimes including murder, torture, and consumption of human flesh. Confirmed animivore. Is allotted 4 living mice per day, to be delivered to the barracks and swallowed whole. They feed her. They confirm that Vrothizo eats souls and they feed her. They've been feeding her since before the prison break. Why? Why this killer and not the innocent Melissa? No matter how I think about it, I can't seem to stop Lady Vesuvius' words from echoing insidiously in the back of my mind. Hypocrisy. A titanic crash quakes the forest, a burst of pressure shaking leaves from the trees even hundreds of yards away. I feel the fight in front of me, 2 beasts of unfathomable proportions duel to the death, one for territory and the other to quench an unspeakable hunger. It's the kind of power that makes hunters tremble, the sort of creatures for which there are no campfire stories because mere humans simply do not meet them and return alive. A grin parts my lips as I sense the moment they feel me, and I'm the one they fear. I've journeyed deep into the forest, aimlessly at first but with increasing boldness. I've never been this deep. No one goes this deep. Throughout most of the forest, the trees tend to grow between 20 and 50 feet high. Looking up now, I think the canopy must be hundreds of feet above me, the trunks as thick as city streets. With each tree taking up so much more space and devouring so much more light, there's plenty of room between each trunk and much less shrubbery choking the ground. It's dark, but visibility is better overall and there's space for the giants to grow. Again, a thunderclap rings through the forest as my 2 chosen prey continue fighting each other, my tentacles coiling in glee. If my soul could salivate, it would be drooling a veritable waterfall. These big bastards are too busy kicking the shit out of each other to run from me, so I guess they're just going to serve each other up on a silver platter. Let's see, I guess I'll kill the Vrothizo second, since it probably won't flee anyway. My perception flits through literal miles of forest life, yearning for the millions and millions of souls within. To my senses it's like a vast field of glittering jewels in every shape and size, from the tiniest insects to the mightiest beasts. It kind of makes me wish I could fill a big pit with souls and swim around in them. Actually, I guess that's kind of what my own body is. I start squirming around inside myself, poking at the various inert souls of my collection and giggling as I approach my soon-to-be meals. Nearly 100 yards in front of me, I spot my prey for the first time as one of them leaps between two trees, its long, millipede-like body undulating through the air like a whip. The monster must be at least 30 feet long, and it looks like a spike-covered snake. Every inch of the massive murder noodle is covered in bony points, and I watch with fascination as two of said spikes launch out of the side of the beast, still attached to the main body by a thin cord of flesh. They lodge into the bark of another tree and yank the entire monster towards it, diverting its course seconds before a pitch-black claw crashes down where it used to be. A single paw of the giant Vrothizo is larger than I am. It draws gashes through the tree bark and cracks the ground, causing me to stumble. Its soul is massive by normal standards, though compared to the size of its body it's almost pitiful. Not that I'm going to complain about eating it. Power. Fuel. The skin just under my armpit twitches where a new tentacle is trying to form, but I ignore it. If I have to endure more unwanted growth from this meal, I will. Just don't think about it, as usual. With escape looking less and less likely, the grapplepede switches to an offensive, firing its spikes towards the Vrothizo itself. I finally get a good look at the behemoth's full body, 6 massive, simian-like arms tipped with claws longer than my legs radiate out from its body in an equidistant pattern, interchangeably striking out to slash at their target, grab and swing from trees, or push off the ground to run. 3 long, serpent-like black tongues lash out from the gaping mouth of its dog-like head, spraying saliva and trying to wrap around the incoming prey. The grapplepede is too fast, though. It twists in the air to dodge the counteroffensive and smashes into the Vrothizo's chest, wrapping around it so its countless spikes dig into the black creature's body. Then it starts to move, rushing across the Vrothizo's radial torso and leaving dark, bloody tracks wherever it scurries. The Vrothizo roars furiously, grasping at its chest in an attempt to catch the horrid, spike-covered snake now dripping with black blood. Yet the other monster just twists onto the Vrothizo's back, digging deep into a ridge between the shoulder blades where its many arms cannot reach. In response, the Vrothizo throws itself backwards into a tree, attempting to splatter the other beast between them. It is a testament to the terrifying durability of these skyscraping plants that the impact of what must be tens of thousands of tons slamming against it barely even causes it to shake. I've not a doubt in my mind that this Vrothizo could knock over the walls of Skyhope like they're a child's stack of blocks. Assuming it could get that far before the High Templars turn it to ash, anyway. Unfortunately for the Vrothizo, the grapplepede avoids the impact, twisting itself around the bicep of one of the black beast's many arms before moving up to the neck. Once again, the Vrothizo tries to snatch the grapplepede between its claws, but this time that stabby snake doesn't avoid the strike. Instead, spikes fire outwards from its body and embed themselves in the Vrothizo's wrists before they're pulled back tight against the grapplepede's body, leaving the Vrothizo only able to scratch at its own face. Sensing my opportunity, I burst forward, leaping up on the Vrothizo's back as it chokes and struggles. Now that the grapplepede has more or less trapped itself in an attempt to score a kill, I can easily run up the Vrothizo's back and yank out PD's soul. Which it quickly seems to realize, squirming in terror as it fails to choke out the black beast before I reach it, shove my tendrils inside, and gleefully rip its life away from it. Instantly, the Vrothizo switches its target to me, which is a slight problem due to how damn big it is. Having a huge body and a tiny soul means I need to reach pretty far inside this thing to grab its spirit, and I physically can't reach far enough if I'm all the way up on the neck. It's just a short jaunt back down the shoulders to my yanking spot, though, and soon enough I have 2 massive, tasty morsels all to myself. I should probably make one arisen, just so I can ride it home while I'm eating the first. And shit, I'm not going to say no to returning to camp on the back of a 30-foot-tall soul-eating monster. It seems like a good way to avoid awkward conversations. Plus, this way I can carry the grapple-peed corpse back as well, and eat it. I'm surprised when night falls, but I probably shouldn't be. I'm deep in the forest. How long have I been wandering around out here? I guess I'm many miles away from the camp, since I can't feel it anymore. It's kind of weird having a sensory range this long. I continue riding back and munching throughout the night, occasionally leaping off my mount to go sneak up on and kill sleeping monsters powerful enough to be worth the effort. I haven't really been sleeping much at all since escaping Site 4, and considering the massive soul meals I've been having, I doubt tonight will be any different. Sure enough, I feel perfectly energetic all the way through the island passing overhead, and when light returns to Verdantop I finally feel my destination enter the edges of my senses. What I don't expect is to sense Theodora, Margaret, and Vitamin there. I urge my massive mount forward, which in this part of the forest means I need it to smash through trees in order to fit half the time. No wonder the deep forest holds all the biggest, most dangerous crap. It must be a massive pain in the ass for anything this big to leave. I guess when you think about it, this part of the forest is sort of a barrier protecting us from an even worse part of the forest. Well, protecting everyone else, I guess. I no longer need protection from mere monsters. Everyone else in my camp does, though, so screaming panic erupts throughout it when my mega monster mount emerges from the trees. Hey everyone! I announce, waving happily as a team of former prisoners and undead emerge to try and protect everyone from the incoming threat. No worries, it's just me. Vita, one of them huffs, clutching his chest and sagging in relief. You're back. Of course I'm back. I call back, hopping down from my perch. You didn't think I'd die in the forest, did you? I mean, kinda. Vita, squeals my favorite revenant, dashing towards me at hyperspeed and jumping into my arms. I catch her and spin her around. Vitamin. I answer back, nuzzling her face. Hey, baby girl. When did you and the others get here? How did you get here? Capita dropped us off yesterday. Vitamin giggles happily. She says hi, and also wanted me to ask you not to kill Sky when you next see him. I'll think about it, I answer flatly. On one hand, the dude helped break me out. On the other hand, he's a mass-murdering terrorist and arguably the reason I was in prison in the first place. So why are you here? Well, we wanted to be with you, duh. Vitamin answers, pouting slightly until I put her on my shoulders. But also Theodora and Margaret had a bunch of stuff they wanted to do. I think Margaret is making a thingy. Oh, a thingy, I grin, nodding along. Sounds cool. Should we go see her? She'd love that. Vitamin agrees. I order my new mount to start following us around the outside of the camp, ripping trees out of the ground for our building teams to use as Vitamin, and I head towards where Margaret is doing something. It looks like she cleared out a wide area, put down a big slab of stone, where did she get that, and is now carving runes on it. Mar. Vitamin calls out. Hey! The pitch-black half-humanoid half-scorpion skeleton monster that I think Vitamin convinced me to adopt at some point turns its empty skull towards us and continues grinning, though now I feel the intent to in her soul. She dashes towards us like the beautiful nightmare she is, scooping me up and wrapping her ribcage around my head, which I suppose technically counts as a hug, so I hug her back. Vita. Vita. You're back. Welcome. Hulumph, grut, I greet her, my face smushed against her bones. HWYHDNG. I'm doing great, she answers happily. Really great. I'm making us a teleportation circle. I'm surprised, and I successfully remember to shape my face to reflect that. I'm back in civilization now, at least kind of. You know how to make teleportation circles? I ask, extracting my head from the bone hug. Isn't that crazy difficult? Oh yeah, definitely. Margaret preens. But I used to do regular maintenance on the Lisha grain gate. Theodora did that, I mean. Sorry, I'm trying to remember to not claim those actions, but anyway, I remember it like I did it. We don't have the metal for a proper spatial gate, but we do have the magical chutzpah to charge runes manually and flash teleport things. I just need to get a few kinks worked out, which actually. She presses a bony finger on the side of her skull, channeling mana through a rune engraving there. Hey, Nugas, she says out loud, even though Nugas isn't anywhere nearby. Yeah, let's try another test. Use one of Theodora's rats, I have a good feeling about this one. Margaret skitters over to the slab, motioning us to follow. Incredibly intricate metamancy glyphs dance across the stone, the sight of them making my head spin. I can almost feel the pull of understanding from the ocean of mana inside me, seeing a hint of the brilliantly impossible structure the glyphs are trying to represent with a mere 2 dimensions, but when I try to focus on the feeling it vanishes like ice in a hot bath. Okay, activating. Margaret says. 3, 2, 1. There's a loud cracking sound, and suddenly a bloody, ooze-covered but otherwise normal rat appears in the middle of the slab. It's alive, but seems to be sleeping. I say. Did Theodora's weird incubator things finally give birth? I ask. Nope, Margaret answers. No, they did not. Hey, Nugas. Yeah, it didn't deflate, per se, we actually teleported her, yep. Yaha. Well, yeah, that's technically progress, but EW. Yeah, give it 5 minutes for the mana to finish cycling out and then you can clean up, okay? Sorry. She ends the communication spell and turns back to Vitamin and I. Wow. Okay, so this still isn't safe at all. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'm oh shit in a sack, what is that? Margaret's jaw opens up wide and she points. I follow her finger with my soul eye and shrug as I realize she's just noticing my super huge Vrothizo risen as it rips up some trees nearby. I mean, it's pretty much what it looks like. I answer, shrugging. I want it, she announces. I blink. Vita, I want its bones, she insists. Please. Please, please, please. Please give me its bones. Vrothizo bones are the best, I could make so many cool bodies with it. Backups, extras I could make a body for Nora. Please, Vita. A body for Nora? I wrap my tendrils around her, hugging her close. I guess. I guess she deserves one to call her own. It'll be weird not protecting her myself, though. Sure, I allow. I can eat its soul if you want to use its corpse for parts. Where do you want me to kill it again? She squeals with delight, scooping me up for another prehensile ribcage hug. We guide the massive Vrothizo to another clearing at Margaret's request and I pop out its soul, happily munching down on the raw power as Jeremiah starts to meander over as well. Welcome back, Vita, he greets me politely. And hello again, Margaret. Onto a new project already? Jerry. Margaret cheers. I'm so glad you're here. Help me peel all this flesh away, would you? We're going to make so much cool shit out of this. He chuckles, glancing worriedly at the 30-foot-tall corpse. Well, I suppose I did ask to compare notes with you, as it were, and a gentleman never hesitates to get his hands dirty for a lady. Exactly. Margaret agrees, already starting to burrow into the corpse's chest cavity. So get to work. Oh man, I have so many great ideas. So, you remember how I was talking about anima branch flexibility and distance issues? Well. They became fast friends, Vitamin explains solemnly. I can see that, I confirm, deciding to wander off and leave them to it. That's nice, huh? It's very nice. Vitamin agrees. I think Margaret is really happy to have a new friend. Especially a human friend. It's just kinda been us, Nugas, and Penelope for years now. Do Nugas and Penelope not count as human friends? I ask. Vitamin hedges. I mean, they're not really human anymore. Plus they're more like family than friends. When you marry Penelope, Nugas is gonna be my sister for realsies. I blink. Wow, I'm not touching any part of that mess. Speaking of, how about we go see Theodora? I ask, desperately changing the subject. Heck yeah. Vitamin cheers. We set off, though along the way I spot to kill from above, of all people, assisting the shelter building team. He seemed completely uninterested in doing much of anything to help anyone, so it's a big surprise. I start walking his way, waving at him. Yo, to kill. I call out. I see you've finally decided to help out. The bug man quickly finishes what he's doing, then turns to face me, standing ramrod straight with 2 hands clasped behind his back and 2 hands clasped in front. Greetings, Vita, he answers in a clipped, militaristic tone. Your observations are accurate. I have determined that the goals of the community align with my primary objective. Therefore, I am compelled to assist. Well, hey, that's good to hear. I answer, smiling at him. Your joy is noted. For clarification, is it accurate that you intend to come into conflict with the pseudo-governmental entity responsible for our incarceration, known commonly as the Church of the Mistwatcher, or simply the Church? I grimace. I wouldn't say I intend to, but I think it's absolutely going to happen regardless of my intentions. Then my skills will continue to be at your disposal, he nods. I look forward to helping you damage and destabilize your island's primary defenses. I blink at him. He does not blink back. Cool, I answer. Well, see you around, I guess. I turn and depart, Vitamin playing with my hair as she continues to ride my shoulders. He's funny, she says. He's something, I agree. At least he's helping people make better houses. Note to self, though, don't eat any more High Templars. We'll still need them for Hive Rock, so I'll have to make them Revenants instead. Theodora, to my surprise, is actually hanging out with Melissa. I guess Melissa is a different sort of slime to the kind she's had history with, but I'm still not totally sure what they could be doing together until I get there and hear the tail end of Theodora trying to convince the kid to let her cut pieces off. It's perfectly safe, Theodora sighs. We will need a sample large enough that some of your free-floating anima splits along with it to form a new ozoid, but it won't be anywhere near enough to cause you memory problems again. Your soul is almost entirely healed. I know, Melissa burbles back, her liquid hands quite expertly pretending to ring together nervously. But I'm not supposed to split, Ms. Theodora. I'm scared. It's okay to be scared, Theodora murmurs soothingly. But think of all the people you might be able to save. Will it really be saving them? Melissa asks. They'll be like me. Oh, Melissa, of course it will, Theodora insists. There's nothing wrong with you, Melissa. You're beautiful. We'll feed everyone properly, just like we're doing with you. No one is going to suffer through what you had to. We're not the Templars. Vita, she exclaims. It's so wonderful to see you. You have perfect timing, actually. Could you help me with Melissa, here? I nod. The potential for giving the souls stuck inside me their own bodies and consciousness back by using ozoids is just incredibly exciting. If Melissa refuses to bud off more animavorous ozoids for experimentation, I guess we could try to capture a wild one, but I'd rather get these things out of me ASAP. As nice as they all are, if I'm going to be fighting High Templars I want them as far away from me as possible. If people don't like being ozoids, I can always just take their souls back out, I reassure Melissa. And either way, Penelope and I are working on getting you and everyone else living, human bodies. It would help us a ton if we can figure this out first, though. It's really, really important. Can you be brave for us? The young-hearted slime shrinks down a bit, but she nods confirmation. Oh, this is so exciting. Vitamin cheers. Am I gonna get to see Penta again soon? Will I finally meet Big Sis Angelian? That's the plan, I agree. It's gonna be a big, happy roo. Vita, a familiar voice snaps. I sigh, turning to look at Ultrix stomping towards us. Damn it Vita, you've been avoiding me since you got back, she yells at me. Do you mind? I ask her. I'm talking with my family, thank you. She flinches like I slapped her, a mixture of pain and rage twisting through her crafted soul. I blink with every physical eye, irritation creeping into me. I feel power start to cycle into Vitamin's limbs. Excuse me. I say dangerously. You heard me, Ultrix snaps. You're a rude, selfish shithead. You can feel how much we love you, and you think that means you can just treat us the way you do your mind-raped slaves. Hey now, Vitamin growls. You think you can just rake your fingers through our soul and not so much as apologize about it? You think you can just ignore the 6 years of your life that made you mean so much to us? We are your mother, and we more than anyone do not deserve this brazen disrespect from you. I already told you, I say evenly. I have a mother, and she's not you. I don't even remember you. So that means you can treat us like shit? We will not stand for it. I'm screaming by the end of my tirade, so I consciously shut up, trying to calm down before I hurt someone. I refuse to start crying again, either. I just got water all over Penelope's clothes a day ago. Even if you are my quote-unquote, real mom, I continue more quietly, that just means I have all the more reason to hate you for putting me on the street. I despise the amount of raw sympathy and regret that pours out of Ultrix at my words. They hurt her more than anything in the world could have, and yet she still feels for me. I want to block it out, but my soul has no lid. I can't stop feeling her pain. We did everything we could, Ultrix eventually answers me, the memory haunting her. When the Inquisition took us away, we made sure you would be safe. Our relatives took you in. They were innocent. You were innocent. We don't know how you died. My eyes widen. What did you say? I ask. So you don't know either, Ultrix sighs. We thought at first it was on purpose. We thought you were just that way, and we never noticed when you were a child. That you murdered someone for vanity. She spits the word, and I just get increasingly lost. What way? I ask. What are you talking about? I died. You must have, unless you changed yourself some other way, Ultrix answers. We'd never have recognized you, if not for your name and your little Roscoe. Your biomancer friend, maybe. I mean she changed me a little, I answer. Like, healthier skin and hair and stuff. Bigger boobs. I didn't ask for that, she just wanted to. And I'm, pretty sure she didn't kill anyone for it. So as far as you remember, you've always been like this? Ultrix presses. Always been like what? Ultrix sighs. So, now you're interested in your past, she grumbles. Ugh, fine. I snap, eyebrow twitching. Yes. I'm interested. Then listen to us, Vita, Ultrix demands. Before we were us, when only Nyx had memories of this body, ours put your soul inside our womb. Inside our child. We gave birth to you, Vita. And when we did. Ultrix stares intently at me, begging me to believe her. You were our son. The first words out of my mouth more or less sum up my thoughts on the matter. That's stupid, I grunt. Ultrix gives me an irritated glare. We assure you, it is the truth, she insists. For 6 years, you were our son. You most likely died, then possessed your current body. I know I forgot a lot, but I find it difficult to believe I'd forget having a dick, I grumble. Ulrich sighs. Do you really find the idea so detestable, compared to that of being a woman? She asks. Well, probably not, Ulrich answers. You did, if you recall, lose all of your memories. We're far from an expert about lichdom, Vita, but we've been around ours since our inception. It is not a task he undertakes casually. He was pretty casual when he slit his throat to avoid walking up some stairs, I counter. It is ours way to always downplay the danger he perceives himself to be in, Ulrich explains. We suspect his decision was far more tactical than he implied. We know that ours prepared his bodies for possession long in advance, heavily modifying both his own soul and that of his target to minimize the damage transferring caused him. But there is damage. Ours has achieved functional immortality through his status as a lich, but he suffers a cost whenever he uses that power. It's like Nora, Vitamin says suddenly, idly kicking her legs from her perch on my shoulders. Souls with nothing to feed them have to consume themselves for energy. Mom, what if your memory loss is the same as when a Nora spends too long outside a host? What if you lost who you were the same way we could, before you killed us? All the other souls in my body aren't feeding on me, and they're fine, I argue. They're unconscious and inert, Vitamin says. They're probably not using any energy. I think about that. Still doesn't seem to add up. You aren't using your body for fuel as a revenant, I point out. And yeah, you degrade, but it's way slower than a Nora does. That's because of my soul shards, isn't it? I think I remember someone saying something about how much more efficient they are, compared to Nora. If they came from my soul, shouldn't I be basically fine for extended periods of time as just a soul? You were not strong, as a child, Ulrich says. You did not have the powers you have now, so that could certainly be part of it. But another theory would be that the process of possessing a different body is inherently exhausting, taking large amounts of energy. You might avoid losing memories now that you have power to spare, but all we know for certain is that, as a child, it nearly destroyed you. So if that theory is right, I might be a lot weaker after a swap, I conclude. Damn. So much for Operation Ditch This Skin. As gross as this body is, I suppose it has also become quite strong. A new body wouldn't have extra eyes and gross faux tentacles, but it also wouldn't have the enhanced muscles and bones that let me survive an explosion to the face. It'd be worse than when I was breaking my own legs for moving too fast all the time. These are all guesses, Ulrich says. I think it's undeniable that you are a lich, a being that can inhabit a new, living body whenever their body is killed. But that would make you and ours the only liches I know of. And the two of you might not even work the same way. Ours prepared his bodies in advance, but there's no way you or he prepared this orphan girl form for you. Vita isn't even a boy's name, I grumble. Ulrich raises an eyebrow. Sano, Excorio, and Interitis don't really sound like girls' names. Ours never gave much thought to things like that. This guy sounds like the absolute worst father figure, I grumble. We would not describe him as particularly competent in that area, no, Ulrich smirks. Though he did give you Roscoe for your birthday, once. That's about the only interaction the two of you had, outside of him dropping by to examine the progression of your soul. I pause, my mind stalling as a dozen questions assault it at once. I manage to voice one of them. When's my birthday? Sympathy, sadness, and regret pour from the woman in front of me, all coated in that motherly love that makes me so suspicious of her. It's hard not to recoil at unrequited longing. Second Greenrock, she answers. Or at least that's when your original body was born. Your birth could arguably be the moment you filled the hollow soul ours made for you, if that is what you identify with, but we always celebrated on Second Greenrock. You'd have to ask ours when you were first brought here, and well, you'd know better than we would about when that part of you from elsewhere was born. You think I'm from another world? I prompt. Aren't you? Well, my mana certainly isn't from here, I muse. It feels like it's from somewhere impossibly far away. I can go there, mentally. Be that part of myself, play around a bit. But there's nothing there. It's just me, and walls of death surrounding me on all sides. I can move around a little, test their boundaries, but it's pretty pointless. There are no answers there, and certainly no memories. It just is. A static equilibrium. I spent plenty of my time in prison confirming that, too. My mana self is so beautiful, so pure, raw potential given form. It's relaxing just to move myself, dancing within the confines of that otherworldly prison, surrounded by multicolored walls of pointless annihilation. Green, black, purple, I could try to tunnel through them, throwing myself against them to burn them away, but why bother? Nothing else exists in that realm. I would just be making myself smaller for no purpose, no gain. I am an ocean among nothing but oceans, raw might with nothing to use it on. Well, nothing on that side of the tunnel, anyway. Ultrix gives me an odd look as my explanation ends, her emotions as complicated as ever. Nostalgia, concern, regret, love, curiosity, ponderousness, there's quite a lot going on inside her head at any given time. You never spoke about any of this as a child, she says simply. Well, I never even knew I was using a different kind of mana from everyone else until Penelope and Theodora figured it out, I shrug. Theodora preens silently, though she's still working with Melissa. I can hardly imagine I had any idea what my deal was when I was 5. I suppose. You were exceptionally intelligent for a child, however. At least when you bothered to be. You were also, well, rather lazy. It was often a hassle to get you to do anything. I flinch, though I manage to keep my body from reacting. That kind of hits close to home. Lazy. I've always hated that part of myself, my tendency to just sit around and wait for things to happen to me rather than deciding on something and working towards it on my own. I wonder, is that part of my nature, too? I've always blamed it on my shitty life, on not physically having the opportunity or energy to do anything in the first place. But if I really used to be what, a spoiled noble boy? And I was still like that? That means it's all me. I can see it, too. I'm most content when I'm sitting around, be that because I'm cuddling someone or diving into my soul or eating or just doing nothing at all. I don't like to plan, to fight, to work, to learn to do anything, really. I solve problems put in front of me, but I need help from others to push me to take it further. I've known this for a long time and struggled to deal with it, because knowing it's bad doesn't change the truth of it. How do I put more effort into the problem of not wanting to put in effort? What have I been cheating myself out of? Maybe I could have even broken myself out of jail sooner if I spent less time ignoring the world and more time thinking about it. Who knows? What comes to mind now, however, is the idea that if I'm the same sort of being as the Mistwatcher, what if this is what it's doing, as well? What if I'm a lazy sack of shit for the same reason it just sits around and eats, never using its power for anything but maintaining its little rotating buffet line? Does the Mistwatcher have hopes and dreams and goals, or is it just a vehicle for sedentary self-satisfaction? And even more chillingly, is that what I'll become when I'm strong enough to not be in danger anymore? Is that all I am, at the core of my soul? Vita? Ultrix asks in that hauntingly motherly tone of hers. Are you alright? Yeah, I lie. I'm just coming to a number of terrifying revelations, is all. I suppose learning that you died and possessed the body of another person would do that, Ultrix answers, smiling slightly. Sure, that too. She blinks. So back to the lich thing, I say, expertly changing the subject. The basic summary is that we think I can shrug off death. I'll be a little weaker, possibly a lot weaker, from the process of moving around without a body and subsequently claiming a new one. The longer I go without claiming a new body, the more damage I'll take. Go too long without a body, and Misty probably eats me. That all sound accurate so far. Makes sense to me. Vitamin chirps. Based on my limited understanding, yes, Ultrix agrees. Silence answers me. I just feel like that's a major problem. Here, I continue. I don't remember doing that. Hell, I don't even know how to move around without a body. Currently, the movements of my soul are entirely based on my soul's link to my body. Ours shot off like an arrow when he died, but he prepares his bodies in advance, apparently. I don't. I wouldn't even know how. What if I die and I just end up floating in place like any other soul? The more I think about it, the more worried I am. How does a soul move without its body? Do I swim through the air? My soul doesn't interact with air. I might be able to grab onto other souls and pull myself around that way, but only if there are any nearby, and pushing on a soul too hard tends to kill it, which is why I can't just spider walk my way around using souls as grapple points for my tentacles. They're fragile. Maybe I could get a bit of momentum that way, but it wouldn't be a lot. I'm almost certainly stuck possessing things that are within tentacle range or just slightly outside it when I die, I conclude. That would even explain why I'm an orphan girl in the first place. If I had the option of flying around and possessing anyone in the city, wouldn't I have done that? Instead, I'm this. One of the earliest things I remember is looting a rich kid's body in order to grab Roscoe, so maybe this body is just the only one that got close enough for me to nab. Which means I was that rich kid I stole Roscoe from. Retrieved Roscoe from. Shit, that's freaky. I died in a random mugging, I realize. My family was just stupid enough to walk around in fancy clothes in my part of town. That's kind of pathetic. Sorry, Vita, Ultrix says quietly, unable to meet my eyes. We did the best we could. Yet I can feel myself tempted to just sit down and tune everything out again, safe in my ocean. Apology accepted, I tell Ultrix. And sorry. For real this time. You're right, I've been an asshole. If that keeps happening, keep calling me out on it. Please. You have my permission. She scoffs. We don't need permission for that. Thank you for the apology, though. We missed you very much, Vita. Well, that's the other thing, I sigh, picking up on the lack of an apology accepted being intentional. Oh, well. I know you think of yourself as my mom. And I'm willing to accept you maybe are my real mom, in whatever capacity that means for someone like me. But I don't think of you that way. I probably never will. She nods, and I feel her heart breaking. But that doesn't mean we have to, I dunno. Be strangers, I guess, I continue quickly. I know you love me, so I'll make an effort to be less of a jerk around you. We can hang out, and stuff. I'll make new memories with you, how's that? Ah, there we go. The warmth in her soul flows back as she smiles wide at me, showing her strangely shaped teeth. Vita, Ultrix says. May we hug you? I tense up a little. I don't know her that well. She's not a revenant. But she loves me. Love is safe. Yeah, I agree. Okay. I set Vitamin down as Ultrix approaches me, pulling me into a firm hug. I feel a desperately needed catharsis start to swirl through her soul, washing her stress and fury and sadness and guilt into something more melancholy, more manageable. I take a deep breath, basking in that feeling for strength, and reach up to hug her back. I forgot what it was like, I managed to say. To be around people that care about me. The hug grows tighter, and I feel a different part of Ultrix's soul slot into control. They will never take you again, Vita, Ultrix promises. We will kill them all if they try. Thanks, Ultrix, I say quietly, and I'm happy to find that I mean it. Excorio, she corrects. Before, you were talking with Sano. Our third is Nyx. At least try your best to remember that, or we will call you an asshole again. I blink. Okay. Noted. I'm not the best with names, but I'll make an effort. She chuckles, finally letting go of me. Good, Excorio concludes. Hey, I hate to interrupt this touching family reunion, Theodora says suddenly, flashing me an awkward smile. But well, we have our first sample. She holds up a glass jar, inside of which is a small, golden yellow glob of slime, alive and wriggling. Behind her, Melissa has her hands on her mouth, as if in shock. Did I just have a baby? She whispers. I'm definitely not supposed to do that until I'm older. It's more like a clone, Theodora unsuccessfully reassures her. Anyway, Vita, it looks pretty mindless. Can you confirm? I give its tiny soul a once-over, and nod. Yeah, I don't even feel any emotions from that. It's dumber than a bug. Perfect. Theodora exclaims happily. So here's the tricky bit. We want to make sure we can replicably integrate a soul into this thing in the same way as Melissa. But if we don't use a large enough soul, it'll just be digested. I nod at Altrix Excorio, and then step past her to approach Theodora and the baby Ozoid. Theodora is basically asking permission to use one of the souls inside my body as a test subject. Which I have more than a few mixed feelings about. I have an obligation to these souls, after all. If something happens to them, it's my fault. We can't really use animal souls for this, though. There's no way to check, say, a squirrel's soul for mental degradation, considering that I can't speak squirrel. And that's assuming the squirrel's soul doesn't just get eaten. We kind of need something of human-level intelligence. Out of everything inside me, though, I think I have a good chunk of souls that fit the bill. Vitamin, I say, looking down at her. How do you feel about me using your sibling to test this? She seems shocked. You don't mean Angelian, do you? She asks. You want to risk her on a test? No, I say quickly. I mean your biological siblings. The Nora souls from Lisha village. They were some of the first souls I saved, remember? Oh, she breathes. Oh, right, yeah. I kinda forgot that. Why them, Mom? Because on one hand, I want to bring them back, I say. On the other hand, if this goes wrong, well, every one of them decided to torture a person in order to live. If someone is going to suffer while we perfect this process, they're the candidates that deserve it the most. Vitamin scratches the back of her head. Maybe you should talk to Margaret about this, she hedges. It's not like I knew any of them. Only you and my two not dads. Just do it, Theodora grumbles. Or will Margaret disagreeing change what you think is best at all? I smile sadly. Nah, it probably won't. Here we go then, I say. Random Nora I don't know number 1, let's bring you back. I extract the soul in question from my body, placing it carefully inside the slime. Best I can remember, I never even interacted with this Nora before, they were just one of the couple dozen possessing a random villager. The soul is almost bigger than the tiny glop of ooze in a jar, but if anything that should just make it less likely to be damaged as the minuscule Ozoid soul tries and magnificently fails at digesting the Nora soul, ending up fused and subverted. Slowly but surely, the consciousness of the Nora churns online, going through that familiar bewildering process of waking up and realizing one's own existence. Welcome back to life. Vitamin says happily, and I immediately notice something wrong. They didn't understand that, I report. They're panicking. They're awake and thinking normally, as far as I can tell, but something's wrong. Well, they're adjusting to new senses, probably, Theodora says. Unless you think it's something more serious than that. I don't remember it well, but I was really scared when I first became like this, Melissa says. I'm blind, you know. I can hear things well, and I can see impressions of people. That's about it. Oh, by the way, you're very beautiful, Miss Vita. Like a bright blue mist-watcher. I was afraid to mention it before because the Templars never seemed to like it when I talked about those things, but jealous of Etta said it was okay now. When is she coming back? I frown a little. Ha. So Melissa has a soul sense. That actually seems pretty obvious in retrospect, considering her whole diet is souls. Even Lark could bite at my tentacles, but I guess Melissa also uses her soul sense to navigate. I'm not sure when you'll see Jalissa again, but I'm sure it won't be too long, I answer noncommittally. So, can you make another? She fakes a blink at me, tilting her head with confusion. Another, she chirps. Another baby slime, I clarify. This is working, and I want to talk to my friend again. It's probably best we wait, Theodora butts in. Let's get this slime fed, monitor it, make sure nothing bad happens. And more importantly, we should do the same for Melissa. Vitamin, can you help us gather up some bugs? Sure thing, Dora. Vitamin salutes before bursting off into the forest. Don't call me. Bah, she's gone already, Theodora grumbles. What should I do? I ask. My revenant shrugs. Whatever you like. But if you want to help, just watch and wait. So I do that. For the rest of the day and all through the night, I monitor this dumb slime's condition, occasionally talking to it and feeding it whenever Vitamin returns with a haul. The first time she brought a bunch of bugs back, I accidentally ate them all without thinking about it. Every subsequent time, I had to consciously restrain myself. It's apparently a habit. I've been awake for what must be over 60 hours now, and I don't feel the slightest bit tired. Maybe I'm just loaded up on sleep from all the prison comas I put myself in. Well, whatever the reason, I finally sent some word recognition from our newly reanimated slime friend the morning after. With some coaxing from Theodora and coaching from Melissa, we get a basic line of communication flowing. And our little baby ozoid reanimation seems sane and stable. That's it then, right? I ask. We did it. Well, there could be any number of long-term complications we don't know about, Theodora insists. But with you here to monitor soul integrity and Melissa's case indicating they should be able to survive without much degradation on a modest diet, I think we might have done it. I take a deep breath, grinning from ear to ear. Then can we do another? I ask. Are you up for that, Melissa? Oh, okay, she says, clenching her little fists with determination. I'll be brave. Cut another piece off of me, Miss Theodora. This is it, then. I stroke the inert soul of my friend, the slaver I swore to never make a slave. I've grown so much since I last talked to her. I wonder how different things will be without her in my head. Talk to you soon, Penta, I tell her, dropping her soul in the next slime. I keep my promises.